The dawn crept in slow, a pale, tired light spilling across the open prairie. It did rush, it just sort of leaned over the horizon, as though the whole earth had forgotten how to breathe. Eli Mercer stirred awake on the porch of his weathered cabin. His body was stiff, bent wrong from a night spent in the old rocking chair, boots still on, hat tipped over his brow. He had fallen asleep staring at the stars. That endless sweep of sky had been his only company for years now. The silence of the ranch, it had been both a balm and a sentence. A life lived with cattle, with wind, and with ghosts that never left. He stretched, joints groaning, rubbed the sleep out of his eyes, and when he blinked toward the yard, he saw her. She was kneeling near the steps, wrapped in a blanket the color of dust and bone. Her hair, long and dark, caught faint sparks of copper where the sun brushed it, braided neat, as if care still lived somewhere in her life. She did move when his eyes landed on her. Did startle? Did beg? Just lifted her head slightly, as though acknowledging she had finally been seen. Eli's breath caught not in fear, but in the stillness of her present. This land had given him storms, droughts, the loss of a wife buried up on the ridge behind the cattle corral, but never had it set a living stranger at his doorstep. "Ma'am," he said, his voice low and rough from disuse. It cracked like an old door hinge. She did answer. Her gaze, dark as whetstone, stayed steady, unflinching, as if she were testing the weight of him without a single word. In her lap rested a small bundle, wrapped in faded cloth. Eli could tell if it carried food, memory, or nothing at all. The hours that followed gave him no answers. When he went to the barn, she rose and followed, not close, not far, just enough to show she was leaving. When he fetched water, she stood silent. Her silence was timid. It was deliberate, as though her words were worth too much to waste on anything less than necessary. By noon, word had already slithered into town. It always did. Martha Kane, the sharp-eyed widow who thrived on gossip like it was bread, arrived at the ranch, with 2 other women at her heels. They came with whispers tucked behind folded arms. "Eli Mercer," Martha called, her voice shrill as a cicada. "We heard tell you taken in one of them women." Eli stepped out, dust still clinging to his shirt from mending fence wire. The woman lingered behind him, half-shadowed by the doorway. He felt the weight of their stares rake over her, measuring, branding. "She came here on her own," Eli said, as steady as he could manage. Martha's lip curled. "And we're supposed to believe that a Comanche woman just appears on your doorstep, neat as a wrap package?" Laughter burst sharp and cruel from her companions. Eli's face burned hot. He had known shame before, shame that whispered after his wife, as death that he hadn't ridden fast enough for. The doctor, that his hands so sure with rope and hammer had failed at the only task that truly mattered. He had thought himself hardened to judgment. But this was different. Their suspicion was aimed at him. It was aimed at her. And yet she stood still, gaze fixed ahead, unbothered, as though gossip were no heavier than a fly too small to swallow. The sheriff came later, Tom Riggins, badge glinting in the slant of afternoon sun. He dismounted slow, each move deliberate authority in every line. "Mercer," he said, "mind telling me why she is here?" Eli explained what little he knew, that she had arrived at dawn, that she had spoken no words, but carried herself with a quiet purpose. The sheriff studied her the way one studies a knife. Useful, dangerous, never neutral. "You know the town one like this," Riggins said at last. "You keep her here. You'll answer for it when tempers flare." "I dawn turn away what is left at my door," Eli replied. His voice was low, but the edge in it was steel. The sheriff's eyes flicked once more to the woman. She inclined her head, neither defiant nor meek, only present, like the hills themselves. The sheriff said nothing more, but Eli could feel the judgment hang heavier than the evening air. That night, while a coyote sang somewhere beyond the ridge, Eli set an extra blanket by the hearth. She touched it lightly before laying it across herself. That small gesture, it felt like grace. By morning, he found his saddle strap mended with neat, practiced stitches. In the days that followed, little things kept appearing, kindling stacked higher. Coffee brewed before he stirred awake. A lullaby hummed so softly it seemed more memory than sound. He did ask for her name, but one evening, while tending the lantern, she spoke. Amara. Her voice was quiet, but it carried, as though her name had been waiting for the right air to finally hold it. Eli repeated it clumsy on his tongue. She gave a small nod, almost approving. That was all. Connection grew not in speeches, but in gestures. Eli left bread by her side of the table. She poured water into his cup before filling her own. One morning, when frost still clung silver to the pasture grass, He found his worn coat, brushed clean and folded by the chair. She had done it silently, the way she seemed to do everything, without asking thanks. Still, the world outside pressed in. Jed Harmon, Eli's ranch hand of 5 years, leaned against a fence post one dusk, jaw tight. "Boss," he said, "folks are saying things, that she's tied to raiding parties, that she's dangerous." Eli looked out across the herd. The cattle moved slow in the dying light. "She's mended more here in a week than most people do in years," he said flat. Jed shifted uneasy. "Doesn't matter what she does, they'll keep talking. Sheriff says it's trouble waiting to happen." Eli said nothing, but inside, the old ache gnawed at him. The ache of knowing dignity could be stripped away, not by truth, but by rumor. It came to a head at the supply auction, the one event that drew every soul within 50 miles. Eli needed tools, needed feed. Avoiding at once an option, he rode into town with Amara seated behind him, her blanket drawn close, her gaze steady as the horizon. The moment they stepped into the hall, silence fell like a hammer. Martha Kane stood at the far end, her lips curling into a smile sharp with poison. "Well," she called loud enough for all to hear. "Look who decided to bring his prize. The bargain bride arrives." Laughter rippled across the crowd. Eli's fists clenched at his sides, but Amara did not flinch. She stood tall, eyes unwavering, the venom sliding past her like rain off stone. That calm, that quiet refusal, it struck Eli deeper than any insult. He stepped forward. His voice carried clear across the room, though his chest burned with fire. "She is not my shame," he said. "She is my gift." The hall froze. The sheriff's eyes dropped away, unwilling to challenge the truth spoken. Martha faltered, her smirk cracking under the weight of silence that no longer served her. People shifted, some sneering, some thoughtful, none brave enough to answer. For the first time in years, Eli felt his spine straighten, not under burden, but under truth. They left together, the murmurs trailing after them like wind, whispering through grass. Back at the ranch, the night stretched wide and star-filled. By the fire, Eli reached across the table, not with words, but with the quiet of his hand covering hers. Amara did pull away, not for a long moment. They sat like that, the silence no longer empty, but whole. Outside, the plain stretched endless, the cattle lowed in the dark, and the world felt vast enough to finally hold both shame and grace. Sometimes Eli thought, what's left at our door isn't a burden. It's a chance. And sometimes the smallest ember, tended in silence, burns brighter than any flame ever declared. And if this story moved you, even just a little, take a moment to share your thoughts down in the comment. I'd love to hear what you felt. Don't forget to tap that like button if you want more stories like this, and subscribe so you never miss the next one. Your support keeps these stories alive, and it truly means the world.